Hey folks, welcome back to Only Best Fancy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about One Salt Sea by Seanan McGuire. And whoever taught Seanan McGuire to fight clearly never taught her how to pull punches, because holy crap, these books just keep going harder and getting more intense with each installment, and this one is no exception. Like this book in particular, it feels almost like a definitive moment in the series because quite a lot happens in here. But let's get into it. What is this book even about? So when we start off, Fairy is on the brink of war. Someone has kidnapped the children of an undersea duchess, and the duchies of the land and the sea are up on the brink of war as a result of that. Of course, who gets thrown smack dab in the middle of it? But our favorite knight, Toby. Her mission is to locate the children and to prove that the Queen of the Mist is not behind the abduction of the children. Whether she is or not is a completely different story. As if that's not enough, this book gets very personal with Toby in a race against time, and she's not going to be able to save everyone in this outing. So yeah, like I said, this is the most intense book to date. And this series has just been escalated more and more with each book, and this is no exception. But this one in particular, Toby really gets put through the emotional ringer. Like this one absolutely has a death toll. Multiple real character dynamics get changed here, some for the better, some for the worse. And like this book almost feels like a big turning point in the series, and there's multiple reasons for that. Setting aside the ramifications with the characters that it has, multiple plot threads actually get wrapped up in this book. Multiple things teased since book one, and that was actually cool to see, because now I think this is like 4 or 5 books we're in, and whereas with Urban Fantasy some authors would really drag that out, Seanan McGuire very definitively wraps up quite a few different threads in this one. So that now has me wondering where the series is going to go from here. That being said, like this world and these characters that she's created, and the dynamics and relationships, and just the history and the lore of everything is very fecund. So she has quite a lot to draw on, even ignoring the seeds that she's planted in the previous books. So there's quite a few more things to delve into when it comes to these other books. So not only is it a turning point, does it feel like a turning point in the series to me, it also feels like there's some very exciting things to come. Now, all of that being said, this book, if there's one common thread that runs through it, maybe like a theme or whatever, it's the way that Fairy regards children. And what makes this story in particular read both very fantastic and very horrific and very intense is that because Fairy has so few children, they're seen as almost sacred, almost untouchable in their way. So for this particular story to play out, like it indicates that multiple lines are being crossed. The unthinkable has essentially happened in many ways. So that like that adds a whole new layer of intensity to what we see here in this book. And even setting that aside, like the way that Seanan McGuire kind of plays with this idea is that we have multiple, over the course of this book, we have multiple sets of parent and children relationships that are kind of touched on and played with, and the dynamics are all different for them. And it's not really an exploration, so I'm not sure if we can really call it a theme, but it's clearly one of the driving concepts behind this book: Fairy and their children, and the different dynamics that can exist in this strange and fantastical world, basically. And it just dives into so many different things, like the way the heritage affects them, these kind of things. I can't really talk specifics because obviously spoilers, but you get the idea at this point. And of course, like as with all the previous books, you can't really talk about this book without the world building. Like it just continues to amaze me that, given this is an urban fantasy series, how imaginative, how creative Seanan McGuire gets into her world. Once again, we go to a completely different setting in this book, and it's just breathtaking, the imagination on display with how she portrays this particular new realm of Fairy and all of that. And as is typical with Fairy, it comes with equal dose beauty and horror. So there's some really creative and imaginative pieces that, like, when you picture them in your mind, they can take your breath away. But at the same time, there's some very horrific things that are connected to this brand new setting, because these characters are very long. Like, they have quite a lot of history. They are, given the particular nature of this duchy and how it works. Like, when we dive into some of the common things that they face as threats and so, like, it's very horrific to stop and really think about the ramifications of it. Like, it's really cool, and it's something that, for me, it kind of really sets this particular urban fantasy series apart from the others, in that all urban fantasy series, yes, they have some amount of imagination, so, but they're usually in one city. The imagination is usually restricted to the threats they face and the creatures and the magic and these kind of things. Seanan McGuire really goes the extra mile in terms of how she builds the world. It's almost like condensed epic fantasy, in the way that she takes the time to just craft something brand new and different and creative for every single book so far. And these books, they come fully loaded. Like, over the course of these things, as Toby has to explore these different, because these books are all mysteries, and Toby has to very much explore the situation, and she dives just into the history and the backstory and the lore of these characters and all of that. Like, it just gets fleshed out in really creative and incredible ways. All that being said, this is still very much, like, as far as as is typical with Seanan McGuire's October Day books, it's very action-packed, it's very intense, a really fast read. Like, as with all the others, I pretty much read this in one shot, because once I started reading it, I just had such a difficult time putting it down, you know. And needless to say, given everything I've discussed so far, the character dynamics that happen in here change. There's quite some drastic changes, not just in terms of the characters who don't necessarily make it to the end of the book, but also in the way that some of the relationships change for the existing characters, which honestly is something that seems to happen in every book. So it's not really new at this point, I guess, but it's really engaging to read. The way that Seanan McGuire just puts together a book that just works on, does so many different things on multiple levels, and just keeps you hooked and keeps you going. You never quite get to stop and take a break when it comes to these books, with how they keep going, and it really works well. It really works well. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on One Salt Sea by Seanan McGuire. Yet another great installment into the series, and yeah, if you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.